episode of the Come On You Spurs podcast. You may have noticed Dan isn't with us tonight doing his hosting duties. He's had enough of Spurs after the last week or so. No, honestly though, I think Dan has got some other commitments that mean he's kind of had to take a step back from this. So I'll be taking this on. We'll be getting back on YouTube and sticking some pods out that way. Just want to give a big shout out though to Dan before we get going and thank him for all his hard work and commitment over the last few years on the COYS pod. I'm sure the panel tonight will agree he was a great bloke to work with. So Dan, much appreciated. I'm sure he'll come on and join us as a guest at some point soon as well. So that'd be good, and we can actually get his thoughts once rather than him asking the questions. So on to tonight, and I am joined by two stellar guests tonight who join me to look back at not such a great week in the world of Spurs. Good start, but this week has really put us all on a bit of a downer. So first of all, we got Ryan. Ryan, how have you been, mate? I know it's been a tough week, but how have you managed to cope so far?
I'm just starting. My body's just getting used to it now. It calms down after 2 or 3 days after a Spurs game. But like we were saying before we came on, it's always eventful supporting Spurs. It always gives us something to talk about when we come on live.
It does, mate. It does. It always gives us. It's never boring, is it? The life of a Spurs fan, and it's never easy. Joining Ryan tonight is the man who always brings the energy, and we are going to need his energy tonight to get through this. Patrick, how have you been, my man?
I mean, me as a person, I'm good, and obviously it's great to be back here with you guys. But as a Spurs fan, I'm down in the dumps, man. I've been getting corn and pelters from all angles on social media. Obviously, I'm quite out there when it comes to Spurs and being on all these pods. So when we go through the mud, trust me, I feel it. So yeah, I've been getting it from all angles. So
yeah, Patrick's feed is definitely worth a follow. He's got some Arsenal men giving him a tough time at the moment as well. So he needs a bit of backing. Get on Patrick's timeline and give him some backing on this. So before we get into it tonight, let's just do the social media bit. So guys, as you know, it's going along the bottom there. Give us a follow and subscribe at YouTube at COYS.com. We're on Twitter at COYS_com. And obviously you got Patrick and Ryan, definitely worth a follow. Get on their timeline, interact. They're always brilliant, always good to chat to. So get on there, guys. We're going to be on all the main audio feeds as well. If we're not on one, give us a shout. But we're Spotify, Apple, we're everywhere. So get there, give us a subscribe and follow. You won't regret it. So there's no point hanging around, is there? Let's get into this. Let's get this therapy session underway. And we can only start. See what we're going to do. We're going to have a little start off. We'll talk about the lineup that came and what we're going to do this time in this new kind of format that we're doing. I'm going to show some tweets from some loyal Spurs fans that go out over the course of the week. So we're going to look at the lineup that we started with. That's going to come up on screen. So for all those listening at audio, we started off with Hugo in goal. We had a back three of Romero, Sanchez and Davies. Wing backs as Doherty and Sessegnon. We started with Winks and Bentancur making his Premier League debut in the middle. And obviously a front three of Son, Kane and Mora. So Ryan, when you saw that lineup, was you pleased with that selection? Did you think it was the right way to go?
I was very happy with Bentancur starting his first league game because he does look quite a good prospect already when we've seen him. Doherty and Emerson, that's a toss up. That is that's just.
Well, I'll show you a little tweet here that Trevor Lloyd put out. So I'll bring it on screen. So it's at Trevor Lloyd 92. He put out Doherty is woeful, but he hasn't ever put in a performance as bad as Emerson did tonight. And this was obviously after the Southampton game. It was historically bad, along with the other clown, Sanchez. So that was Trev's view on that. So what did you think about that change?
It was a change that needed to happen, but I think going forward, I would rather probably see Tanganga at right wing back over Emerson and Doherty at the minute. Obviously, we know he's got the engine. He can defend. I think he's less exposed on the right as he is in the middle. So I'd rather Tanganga there when he's fit. I never thought I would say this, especially this season, but I can't believe how much we're actually missing Eric Dyer in the centre of that defence. And compared to Sanchez, he's world class compared to Davinson at the minute. He is a big miss, Dyer is. And then I think the only one I was probably a little confused about was Reguilon out, Sessegnon in. I don't know if it's match fitness or just Conte's way of rotating, but to start him over Reguilon to then ship him off after, what was it, 25, 26?
It's about 28 minutes we made the change, didn't we, after that horror show start. And like, as you say, I guess no one really knows. Maybe you're just resting Reguilon for this game. But that was a surprise one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but also I think it's time we see the 5 midfield now. I think he needs to go with 3 in the centre of the pitch. I think to say as good as Lucas has played this season, after the break, the first 2 games back, he's just gone off the boil a little bit. He's just a bit sloppy at the minute. He's not picking the ball up and driving as he was at the start of this season. So I don't know whether that's replacing him with Skip. Once Skip's back, Højbjerg back in for Winks, because Winks just don't cut it anymore. Winks is not the player you want to start. He could have all the work rate in the world, but he's not good enough to start. But like I say, at the minute, I think we just got to trust Conte's decisions and his lineups, and hopefully can get us as far as he can this season. And in the summer, he's really, really backed, and then we will see some selections that we can't really argue with.
Patrick, what about yourself? Was there any surprises in that starting lineup, given what had gone on in the previous game against Southampton? Was you surprised that Doherty coming in? I mean, was that a change you would have been in favour of?
No, I wasn't surprised, to be honest. And I even put a tweet out before the game, and it got mocked up, obviously, afterwards because of the scoreline. But I like it in capitals. Bentancur starts, then starstruck emoji. Højbjerg, Emerson and Reggie dropped. Yeah, and then I put in brackets rested. 3 points is a must today. No excuses in capitals, COYS. So I understood, from my understanding, Højbjerg needed a rest. He's been really bad in recent weeks. No shade to Højbjerg, because he is a good player, and I think he is a good DM, but he's just been overran and overworked, so he needed a rest. So I understood that one. Emerson, again, take him out of the firing line. I still think there's a good player in there. Like Ryan said, his work rate is immense. He just needs a bit more quality on the ball. But I do see some qualities there that we can. He's only 22. First 6 months in a new league, doesn't understand language. I think sometimes fans have got to be a bit more realistic and cut him some slack. So, but I understood the rotation. Doherty is meant to be a Premier League right back. And you always see a player, when they play against the old team, usually put in a performance. So I understood that side of it as well. Obviously, we'll get into it. That didn't happen. And then Reguilon, if we're being honest, he hasn't been good in recent weeks. And I called it, and I said it on a few podcasts. And that miss, that sitter against Southampton, when we could have really put the pressure on them, gone 1-0 up, we were having good passages of play, Kane with the lovely through ball. Reguilon had both sides of the goal to aim at, and what does he do? He whacks it straight at the keeper. That was unforgivable for me, man. And there's been so many times this season where Reguilon has just been quite sloppy in the final third. He's not great, if we're being honest. So again, I understood why he got dropped. Give Sessegnon a chance. We paid 25 million for this guy. He was a good player at Fulham. Give him a run out. I felt sorry for Sessegnon because, to be honest, everyone was crap in that first half. It could have been anyone that got the chop. Unfortunately, it was him. And as he was walking off, you could see he was so down in the dumps. He was dejected. We were all clapping him off, obviously, as a young man.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Patrick, I don't think he wasn't hooked because of his performance, was he? Exactly. A lot of people after the game. Yeah, a lot of people after the game were putting posts out around, well, what's that going to do for Sessegnon and that? But I think as a footballer, you probably know, don't you?
You understand,
I've been hooked. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it reminded me of the situation when Dyer was hauled off under one of Jose's first games, wasn't it, in the Champions League. And I think, the pros are good enough to understand that, listen, I've not been hooked because of my performance. The boss wants to make a change. And unfortunately, this week, I'm the one that's getting the change up. So, I think there's a lot of people saying, oh, what's Conte done for Sessegnon and his confidence? But I don't think it'll be seen like that, to be honest.
Yeah, these are grown ass men as well. Like, come on, do you know what I mean? They should be able to have, like, obviously it's not nice. Of course it's not. No one wants it, but it's at the end of the day, the team comes first, and someone had to take the chop. To be fair, you know, Conte isn't as great as a manager as he is. He's a world class manager. We understand how great he is, but he's not basically, you know, he can also come under question. He's not above being questioned, and keep starting a midfield two of basically, well, one good ball playing player in Bentancur, and then whoever you put in Hoiberg or Winks, they're not ball playing CMs. Like, that's questionable for me, especially against teams. They know what we're going to do. We're so predictable at the moment, and even the Wolves manager and Southampton manager both said it. Pack the midfield out because we know they only put two in there, and we're just getting overrun. And it happened again. Obviously, you know, Conte did make a change, but we was already 2-0 down by that point. So
yeah, that's right. I mean, like as you say, I think, you know, there was a lot of tweets flying around after the match, wasn't there, about people saying, you know, if anyone's blaming Conte for this, then, you know, you're part of the problem. But I think, like as you say, the issue here is, you know, yes, no one's blaming Conte, and I think we understand that the guy hasn't got the players to work with. You know, again, it's this thing that, you know, you could have the best jockey, you could have the best trainer, but if you enter the Grand National with a donkey, you ain't going to win it. But it doesn't excuse a manager who, by now, in my opinion, should have seen you can't play those wing backs. They can't do that job he wants to do, and should see during games at times that if you're getting overrun, you need to make a change to try and change that. And just because he's a new manager here, you can't excuse that, and you can't just give him a free pass. The manager has to take some responsibility to try and change something if he sees it's not working. And I think we could all see, and we have been able to see by now, that the wing back situation with the players we got is not going to cut it. So you might have to look at doing something new. While we're on the topic there of the fullback situation, I want to show you a guy's another tweet, and this was from @Craig_Spur. We're just talking about Doherty and Emerson, and he obviously put, if you really want to make your head hurt this morning, have a think about our right back fiasco since we sold Walker. Trippier to Aurier to Doherty to Royal, horrendous enough in itself. But then throw that in, we also let Carl Walker-Peters and Foyth go whilst bringing in the latter two. Mental. It is an issue, isn't it? Because we have seen after that Southampton game as well, a lot of people saying, you know, Carl Walker-Peters, what a player in that. But do you think, as that tweet kind of suggests there, and I kind of believe in, what makes it look even worse when you see someone like Carl Walker-Peters at the moment, who's a steady fullback, but it looks worse for us, doesn't it? Because the club haven't upgraded that position since we let him go. I honestly believe if Carl Walker-Peters was still at the club right now, fans would be saying this guy is not good enough. We need to improve. We need an upgrade in that position. Ryan, what do you think?
We could be very fickle at times, can't we? A Tottenham Hotspur fan base. Now he's elsewhere and he's putting in decent performances. Then, yeah, you always look back at him and say, "Oh my God, he could have been our number one choice right back." But like you say, if he was still here, one bad performance, and it will be, no, he's only here because he's from the youth. He's a Tottenham lad. That's why they're keeping him. We're too sentimental with these players. The problem we've got is the recruitment at the end of the day. The 50 million we got for Kyle Walker should have gone on a replacement for him. I think when you sell someone for that much money at that bigger price, then you replace him with that money you've just received. If he's worth 50 million, then there's going to be another right back out there that you can buy at the same quality. Because when you look at Kyle Walker, he wasn't the greatest. I mean, his pace is what's made him a better right back. His defending isn't great. He's very sloppy, but he's absolutely rapid. So when he makes a mistake, he can always get back and recover for it. But the right back situation, it is as it is. Like Patrick said, a lot of us, myself included, recently are quick to jump on Emerson, and like I say, 22-year-old, still learning the language, completely different atmosphere in the stadiums, completely different way of living in London now. So you have got to give these players time. There's no point having him for 6-7 months and saying no, he's not good enough. You've got to let him bed himself in. He's probably still trying to understand half the players' game that he's playing with at the minute. 1 week it's Winks next to him in midfield, then it's Højbjerg, then it's Skip, now it's Bentancur. It's difficult for a player that young as well at 22 to immediately grasp the Premier League. It's not that simple, but at the same time, we probably could have done better business bringing in another right back. Obviously, you want two players in each position, especially if you want European football at the end of the season. So hopefully we can bring somebody else in. Say keep Emerson, let him keep learning the league, let him learn the language, get used to living in England now. And like Patrick said, you never know, you could actually get a gem out of it at the end of it. Because if I remember rightly, David De Gea's start in England was awful, and Man U fans wanted him out as soon as they saw him. And since then, he had 6-7 great years at Man United. Turned out to be an absolute wonder. I'm not saying Emerson will reach them level of performances as a right back, but you've got to give people time now.
I definitely as well would say, like, based on Trevor's tweet there that we saw earlier, I have to say, Doherty to me has not done anything to warrant being viewed as being any better than Emerson Royal, to be honest, in a Spurs shirt. I haven't seen Doherty do anything, and I've seen him put in some shifts and play some games where I'm thinking, wow, this guy is horrific, and goes down as one of the worst right backs, I think, or wing backs that we've ever had. So I'm, if I'm picking either out of the two, I'm picking Emerson over Doherty all day long, to be honest. What about you there, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Doherty. To be fair to Doherty, he's had one good performance, Leicester away, when he played half a half.
Second half cameo, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. He was brilliant in that game. He was flying forward. He was getting back defensively. He was putting in good crosses, good balls. And I was like, wow, this is the Doherty that we saw at Wolves. Because when he played for Wolves against us, he always terrorized us.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the first time I've seen him have a good performance. But other than that, he's been rubbish. And we always do this though as Spurs fans. And I said it I was in a space on Twitter, where you're just talking, pretty much like a chat room like this. And I was pretty much going against the grain. Everyone was saying Emerson is rubbish. What are we doing? I want him out. And I said, I can see a player in there. And I broke it down what I said here. 22, first half a year here. He's come in as a right back, don't forget. Then obviously Conte came in, has played him as right wing back. His the defensive players behind him have switched about 10 times. Obviously, like Ryan alluded to, the midfield person in front of him has changed about 100 times. The guy is still trying to learn the job. There's so much going on, but I can see a player in there. Yes, his deliveries in the Final Four could be better, but in terms of defensive reading the game, his engine, he's not that bad. He's not as bad as we're making him out to be. We did this against Trippier. With Trippier, we ran him out of the club. Trippier's crap. He's this, he's that. The guy went to Atletico Madrid and won the La Liga, played in the World Cup, and looked quality.
People were then questioning why we didn't buy him back in January.
And then he's come back to Newcastle and he's whipping in free kicks for fun and looking good. Trippier was a good player. I said it at the time. We ran him out. We did the same with Kyle Walker before when he was going. All of a sudden he was crap and, blah, blah, blah. Once we knew he was his head was turned. And then we've also done the same with Kyle Walker-Peters as well. And Kyle Walker-Peters isn't as good as we're making him out to be. Yeah, he's playing okay, but you got to remember he's got the consistency. He's had a year and a half there now, playing week in and week out. He knows he's the first choice right back. That does a lot for a player's confidence, and obviously you see a better side of them. And then again, yeah, he's had a good game or two, but we've got to move on past that. But sorry, and going back one more, Foyth. I didn't want Foyth gone. I saw a player in there.
Yeah,
and I thought the guy was good.
We mentioned that a few times, didn't we? That
we
thought
Foyth
had a career here.
Foyth is brilliant, man. On the ball, he's amazing. He can pass. Yeah, sometimes he does have a lapse of concentration, but again, he was a young kid. He did need to bulk up a bit, but we've seen him for Villarreal put in man of the match performances in massive games. So the guy was good. Again, I didn't want him gone. Some of the fans did. He did go, so be it. But yeah, we've got to give Emerson Royal time. We seem to do this a lot with our right backs.
I think Patrick, what we could say, couldn't we, was Foyth and I think Kyle Walker-Peters were victims of something Poch used to do, which is just keep young players in and around the squad rather than sending them out on loan, where they could have got match experience, first team experience for a year or two and come back, if you like, men from that. A bit like Danny Rose did when he went to Sunderland. He then came back the player that one of the best fullbacks in the leagues at that point. And I think, unfortunately, Foyth and Cole Walker-Peters were kind of, ultimately, I think, Poch liked to keep them around instead of game time. But, well, I guess we've got to see. But for me, I'd definitely start Royal over Doherty every day of the week.
Definitely.
Okay. So let's look into the game. It was a horror start, wasn't it? That's picked the bones out of the first goal. Ryan, ultimately, you got to look at everyone in this situation, haven't you? You got Neves being allowed loads of time to get a shot away, reminding me again, like the game in midweek, where if you're going to stand off Ward-Prowse and give him time to deliver, you're going to get punished. The same with Neves. You can't step off him and allow him to shoot. But then Hugo just had an absolute horror 10 minutes, didn't he, around that time?
Yeah, well, it's like you say, the player, before the goal, the player should have read the situation, even if it's a centre-back running out. If you see a Ruben Neves that close to your own box with time and space, he's going to either create a goal or score an absolute worlder. Like you just said about Ward-Prowse, we gave him the entire right-hand side of the pitch for Southampton, and his delivery is as good as anybody's in football. And he found his player twice for them to get the 2 winning goals. But like I say, after that, I feel bad in a sense of criticising Lloris the way he's been for us this season. But like you say, as a fan, as good as he's been, you still have to call out the calamity that it was. I mean, when I was obviously watching it, you think to yourself that, well, as soon as the second ball's come back in, you think, yeah, it's fine. He's got that. I don't understand why he went to punch it. It was just an absolute horror show. Whether there was no communication, whether he thought I think it was Ben Davies closest to him was also going for the ball, so he just had to hook it away because he didn't want an own goal. And it's hard to say, but the first 10 minutes of that game, never mind the 20 minutes, the first 10, you could see which way the game was going. We seemed to press for about the first 5-6 minutes of the game, and then after that, it's
we kind of looked sharp after a couple of minutes. Mora, we had Kane play the ball over the top for Mora, didn't we? And you kind of thought, well, okay, that's a promising start. But then, as you say, after that, it was just one-way traffic for a little while, wasn't it?
We just let the other team dictate the entire game. I mean, we're at home against Wolves. We're a better side than Wolves. Nobody can argue that. Yes, Wolves are a good, decent team. They'll give you a good game, but we are better. We should have majority of the ball. We should make Wolves fear what we could do on the ball. If we get the ball up to Harry Kane or Son, they should be tracking back and they should be worrying. It shouldn't be us worrying about them playing out from the back, getting the ball into Neves, because at the minute, this midfield, obviously, Patrick said it earlier, it's time to drop this midfield 2 now, get the 3 men in there, because the last 2 games, it's been 1-2 passes and they're in behind our midfield and they're up against our defence. And like I say, Sanchez is just, I don't know. As soon as he sees, he's like a child at 6 aside, 5 aside. As soon as he sees a ball, he's gone. He's not thinking about his position. Davies ain't got the pace to keep up with many players now. He's a reliable left centre back, but if you've got Daniel Podence against Ben Davies, there's only going to be one outcome from that. But the 2 men in midfield, as soon as that press is beaten, if one of them go out of position or if one presses, it's just one simple wall in behind, and then you've got 4 or 5 attackers, and it seems an eternity for our midfield to get back. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it just feels like once it's past them, that's it then. It's like they're completely out of the game.
There's a great picture on Twitter, isn't there, of a still of when that ball's in the box for the first goal. And I think you've got about 5 Spurs players on the edge of the box, in a line, looking into the box. And it was something I noticed, the other in the Southampton game. I think there's Armstrong had a header in the first half, I think it was, or second half. And it's really, Winks follows him at one point. But if you watch the video, even though Winks follows him into the box, he soon drifts away from him to leave him the free header. We don't seem to have those midfielders that seem to be aware, do they, of the runs that are going on beyond them and the capability of them following following them in. And that first goal was a perfect still that kind of shows you all these bodies just looking into the box. And you're thinking, well, a couple of you should at least be in the box right now with the runners there. But Patrick, as Ryan said quite rightly there, Lloris has been brilliant recently, isn't he? And let's face it, he has saved us on numerous occasions this season at times. But he just his head went, didn't it, for 10 minutes, because the first goal is followed up by the second, where he just plays an absolute horror pass out to Ben Davies, and we'll discuss obviously what Davies does after. But I think at that moment, Lloris's head was just scrambled, wasn't it?
Yeah, his head went, and two massive moments in that game, and literally turned the game on its head. And Lloris has been brilliant for us this season, and I still think he's one of the best goalkeepers out there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he does have these moments in him. But to be fair, other than all goalkeepers have it. I've seen Edison have a shocker. I've seen Alisson definitely have howlers. David De Gea had criminally shocking moments. So no goalkeeper is past a mistake like this. But to do two in the same game in under 10 minutes, it's always going to be hard to bounce back from that. And the first goal, like Ryan said, he literally punched the ball to Jimenez. Jimenez had a nice volley, boom. That's a goal, chested it down, so he volleyed it in. And then, just whacking. The pass to Ben Davies was really poor, but then also Ben Davies, if in doubt, just whack it out. Why is Ben Davies trying to curl the ball through and play like cute, passes at that moment? And when we're under that much pressure, just boot the ball away. It doesn't make sense. At least Davinson Sanchez, for all his howlers and his mistakes, he would just whack that ball out. Same with Dyer, they just whack the ball away. They wouldn't be trying to overdo it. We're getting our backs pressed. We're against backs to the wall. We're getting pressed, and you're trying to be cute and whack, curl round lovely through balls at that point of the game. It was crazy. And then as soon as they got the ball, you kind of already felt it that it was going to be a goal, and unfortunately, it was. They were very fortunate. I don't know if they're lucky or we were unlucky or whatever it was, but you make your own luck. The ball hobbled around, hit the post, bounced back. Podence was in the right place Dendoncker, was in the right place at the right time, and he just stabbed it in. It just felt, and again, we had moments, but we just never were really in that game. And like Ryan's saying, it's criminal that we're at home, a much better team. But the reason why we're struggling is because we don't have the midfield to actually supply the front line, or we don't have the midfield to dictate them. Even, you see midfielders like even Thiago Silva, even though people have been bantering him and ridiculing him since he's come to Liverpool. He'll just get on the ball and he'll slow the game down. He'll dictate the game. He'll pull some strings, pull people out of position, and move the ball around. We've got no one. I mean, obviously Bentancur, it's too early to say yet, but it looks like he can do that. We've seen it in glimpses, but he's only played a game and a half, so we can't really get too carried away. But you can see a player there. But Winks can't do that. Højbjerg can't do that. Skip is fantastic, but again, he can't do that. So until we get some ball playing midfielders, we're going to struggle, unfortunately, no matter even if we pack it with 4 or 5, because the guy still ain't good enough on the ball to really pull the team around. Like when we had Dembele, he could do that. Even Ndombele, I know, his engine wasn't great, but again, he could pull strings, dictate, and move the ball around. We're really lacking. And even if you look at Wolves and Southampton, 2 teams that we're much better than, they've got much better ball playing midfielders. So that's why we're struggling at the moment.
I think as well, potentially, we're coming to see what you guys think. We know, obviously, come the end of the January transfer window, we shipped out the players that we did. And I think the one worry that, a few of us seem to have by looks of it, and I'll get your guys' view on this, was that, yes, the players we shipped out, we can all sit in there and say, listen, Ali, we were all saying he seemed to be, was we ever going to get that player back? And Dembele, we knew he was kind of an enigma, wasn't he? All this talent, but never looked like he was going to do it. Lo Celso, again, massively, made of glass, injury prone when he was playing, never really seemed. But do we feel letting all those players go in the centre of the park, did we feel we kind of left ourselves short in that when a game like this Wolves was going to happen, where suddenly you may have to change a game, do you guys feel we've kind of left ourselves short of any options to do that? I mean, Ryan, what was your view once you saw all those go and only the 2 come in that did?
I think he was maybe hoping for another to come in with Bentancur. I think he wasn't maybe expecting Lo Celso, Dele, and Ndombele gone. Like I said, they weren't pulling up trees for us. They weren't changing games before that. And I know Conte is a manager that usually likes a smaller squad, not so many players to manage. He can work with a smaller squad, but a game like that, you'd think of someone like an Ndombele who can come on, get on the ball, not really have to do much running, as daft as it sounds for a professional footballer. He wouldn't have to work as hard because we are chasing the game. So he will be more on the front foot. And he's a player on his day, if he gets on the ball, you know he's going to make something happen for you. He can beat a man, he can find a pass, and he can score goals. We've seen he's scored a few goals, but it's a hard one at the minute. I hope when Skip's back, he'll come straight back into the side. He's not a baller in the midfield, but I'm hoping he'll come back and sit in front of that defence and allow a Bentancur and maybe a Kulusevski, if he pushes him inside, maybe to become the advanced playmakers of the side. But we seem to have options off the bench at the minute. Like I say, with Kulusevski coming in, Bentancur's on the bench, obviously, for the Southampton game. But I think, especially after a loss, you're always going to look back at the players you've just let go and think, oh, maybe we could have kept one of them. But like I say, they weren't doing anything while they was there. So I think we made the right decision to let them go. But at the same time, we made the wrong decision to not bring others in.
That's the thing, Patrick, isn't it? Obviously, I don't think anyone's overly upset to see those players go because I think they'd all had their time. But I know I looked at that central midfield positions when they left and thought, wow, we've left ourselves, we were worried about creativity before those players went. And once they did go, you looked and thought, wow, Højbjerg and Skip, again, not the most creative players in the world. Winks, his first thought is always to turn backwards and look behind for a safe pass. You then got obviously Bentancur, who, as we say, looks a good player. But again, is he going to be that driving creative force? So Patrick, was you worried at all that we might have left ourselves creatively short, or creatively some options off the bench where you could say, well, okay, if this guy comes on and can have an impact, it might be a positive one?
I think there's two ways to answer this question. And regarding the players that we let go, I wasn't worried or bothered at all. I was sad to see Dele go because obviously we all had an attachment to him. He came in at such a young age. He took all of our hearts because he basically took the league by storm, and he was such a great player. We thought we had found basically the best hidden gem ever. He was amazing. He had 3 or 4 years where he was unplayable, brilliant. He had that desire, that energy, that bite. He was just fantastic. But obviously he fell off a cliff, and it looks like there was other things going on outside of football, and he wasn't the guy that we all knew. So I was sad to see him go, but I was actually happy that we sold him. He's off our books. No more what's happened to Dele. Is he going to come back? When he's not playing, why is he not playing? When he's not in the squad, why is he not in the squad? None of that cloud around us anymore. So I was happy to, sad to see him go, but happy for him and us that chapter's now behind us. Ndombele and Lo Celso, obviously I was gutted it didn't work out, but again, I was happy. They needed to get out of the camp. They were just basically bad eggs in a sense of, I'm not saying their personality they were bad, but it just wasn't good for the dressing room morale. It wasn't good for the fact that, again, you got £100 million worth of talent that never plays, and when they do play, they don't do anything. They weren't doing any other than Ndombele's assist for Kane against Liverpool. Those guys have done nothing. And that's crazy. That's £100 million worth of talent doing F all every game. If they even get on the bench, even if they get on the pitch. So they had to go. Obviously, getting them both out in the same window, I thought it was good. And if they do pull up trees where they are, that's fantastic because we can get rid of them in the summer and go again. Right now, we are a bit short, yes, but I do believe it looks like Ndombele is doing okay. Lo Celso, I'm sure, will do well. And then we can at least recoup almost 80 to 100 and put that into players that we know can provide for us. So in that sense, I was sad to see that it didn't work out for all three, but I was happy with the fact that they're off our books. We don't need to worry about them. And we brought in players that will fit Conte's system. It's a bit of a tough one because we've lost 2 games that you don't expect to lose. If we don't lose those games, even if we get a draw and a win, totally different story, and none of us are really talking about it. But because we've lost to Chelsea, and then obviously we've got back-to-back shockers and Man City coming up, it now feels like we're in a really bad place. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. We're hoping that Kulusevski comes in and it is that more creative, attacking midfielder, playing just behind the Kanes and the Sons. We're going to have to see how that goes. Bentancur, we know, can be a deep playing quality midfielder. But between those two, something's got to give, man. Then we need some creativity, because if those guys don't come in and do it, we've all seen the rest of the guys ain't really got that in them. Winks now and again can pull a pass, but unless he's driving forward, Winks only seems to drive forward when the crowd gets on him. When the crowd are on him and like push the ball, then he pushes it. But unless that happens, like you said, Carl, his first instinct is sideways or backwards, and you don't need that at this level. If it's not natural, it's never going to come now. He's 26. It's not going to happen,
that's
is
correct,
it?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
So and Winks again. I mean, I saw a good Winks 2 or 3 weeks ago, but now I'm seeing a shaky player, someone who is looking like they're lacking in confidence and they don't believe in themselves. So it's almost like he played for January, so he didn't get traded, and now that the window's closed, he's reverted back to his old Winks. So he's basically hoodwinked us, and it's it's just it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating.
So obviously, once you're 2 down in a game like that to a team like Wolves, it's kind of training ground stuff after that, isn't it? One question to ask you guys, because when you look at those 2 performances, and like I said earlier, Conte possibly, does he need to change it a little bit more drastically? Do you feel we are far too predictable? I mean, if you look at the Hasenhüttl comments after the Southampton game, basically said, didn't he, that look, we knew what Spurs were going to do. If they get one up, they're just going to sit back, try and hit us on the break. We know what they're going to do. Wolves kind of indicated as well that they knew what was coming and had a game plan. Do you think that's a real problem we're suffering with at the moment, just in the fact that Spurs are just too predictable a side to play against, and it can sometimes become too easy? Ryan, what do you feel?
Oh, massively. I mean, like Patrick said it earlier, we have become a very predictable side at the minute. I don't know if it's a lack of trust that Conte has in some of his players, that he's not willing to get the first and push for the second, maybe the third, or if it's something that Conte's not even given the players as a direction. Maybe it's something that it's hard to change after Mourinho and Nuno. Maybe it's something that they've been so used to over the past few years that they're just still trying to revert away from that. But I say, for teams like with all due respect to Southampton and Wolves, for teams like those to come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and feel, before they even come out on the pitch, that they've worked us out, before they've seen the lineup, before they've seen the shape of the side, to feel like they've actually worked us out already and feel comfortable and confident in the game is very worrying for us as a side, because we should be going up against Southampton and Wolves and getting the first as early as possible and pushing for the second and pushing for the third. I mean, obviously Pochettino was a completely different team, completely different setup. Like you say, you had your Dembélés and Eriksen's, Vertonghen's out of her roles. It was a completely... But watching that Tottenham side, you knew exactly how it was going to go. We was going to push for the first, was going to press the opposition, was hopefully going to get the first, and then push on for the second. You wouldn't expect us to sit back, let the team come at us, and eventually break us down, which is, I think, watching us at the minute, if we go 1-0 up, that's probably the most worrying scoreline in a game for Tottenham at the minute, because you know exactly what's going to come next. You know we're going to just sit back, let the team come at us, and eventually you cannot hold on to a lead for the entire 90 minutes. It's not going to happen. There's going to be a mistake somewhere. Someone's going to be sloppy. There'll be a bad pass, or it's not going to happen. So hopefully Conte's looking at it, like you say, it could be a completely different system he needs to use, but fingers crossed he can actually change it and push us on now to actually take the game by the scruff of the neck and not just work hard for the first goal, but work hard for the second and the third. And then if you want to see out the game at 3-0, that's fine. You can revert back to that at 3-0. It's a comfortable lead in some games, not every game, but in some games it's a comfortable lead. But then you can maybe understand it. But at 1-0, it's too dangerous a game to play, that is.
Yeah, Patrick, I mean, I think back to that Liverpool game at home and how, in that point we could have been 3 up, couldn't we? And we were just really direct, fast and strong. And, let's face it, on that day, Liverpool were very lucky not to be going in 3-0 down at half time. We just haven't played with that sort, obviously the Chelsea games have knocked the stuffing out of us. Then, we looked good against Brighton, didn't we? And that I thought, we dealt with Brighton really well because I was actually worried about that game given they're a really good side. But then these last 2 games in the week, and one of the worrying things is obviously, Conte kind of looked and sounded a little bit like a beaten man, didn't he, after that last one against Wolves? Do you see the fact that we've got to change something up, or he needs to change something up now because possibly we are too predictable and something needs to change given the manner of the performances?
Yeah, and it goes from top to bottom. Conte definitely isn't without fault, as I addressed it earlier. So he needs to take a look at himself. Even some of the stuff he says, I don't know if it rings the right message to the players because they're going to hear it. And the way he's talking about the team and the players and the squad, he's almost like he's dumbing it down and just saying they're not good enough, which we know they're not, but you can't say it every time because the players obviously know that they're part of that squad and the guys that aren't starting basically know what he's saying. So he needs to hold some accountability. He has become too predictable. We already know what system we're going to play, what lineup. If things aren't going well, he'll revert it to a back 4, add an extra, change it up a bit, put 2 up top and put an extra player in the middle. Switch it up a bit, man. Like, it's the same thing all the time. Even the best managers, your Klopps and your Peps, they change it up a bit. I know obviously they got better players, don't get me wrong, but they don't play with the same system in every single game.
Yeah.
Even Pochettino, when he was, in his heyday at Spurs, we would actually change our formation and personnel depending on who we're playing. And I think Conte needs to do that a bit. We hear the stories from Chelsea and Inter Milan fans saying he's quite stubborn and they stick to the same system for every game. That's not going to work. So he does need to also look at it. And I know he's tried to make in-game changes, but it's already too late by then. So he needs to look at that. And then, I just think the players as well, they need to hold themselves accountable because Kane has had a lot of chances. Sonny was running at players and he was doing well. Again, he had a few chances where the ball didn't really it was getting under his feet and he wasn't hitting it clean enough, or he was whacking it straight at the keeper. We alluded to Reguilon's chance. I think Kane against against Southampton, had a clear header and he headed it down into the ground and it just went over the bar. We've had chances in both games. So, obviously defensively, we are a shambles as well. And I'm hoping we touch on the fact that Davinson Sanchez is just all over the place at the moment. And being at the ground, I'm seeing he doesn't get on with Winks. Him and Winks are always arguing and shouting at each other during the game. So everyone's pointing fingers. No one's stepping up and just actually saying, you know what, let me take control. Everyone's shouting and pointing and blaming each other instead of just actually manning up and dealing with the situation.
Well, we're saying that, Patrick. I mean, let's stick to that point then at the moment. Obviously, we know Dyer's injured and you assume that when Dyer comes back, I'm assuming that I think obviously Sanchez will then find himself out the side at that point. But again, like as we've said, given recent performances, and I think Conte's kind of alluded to, isn't he, that maybe he should have given Rondon a bit more of a chance. Do you feel that given the way Sanchez is playing at the moment, you can't start him in the next game? You've got to think of something else to do there, haven't you? Because the guy, unfortunately, at the moment, like as you say, his head's a little bit scrambled, isn't he? He makes rash decisions. I mean, you've all seen the clip where he gets the ball on the edge of the box and suddenly then almost turns it over.
Pushes it.
Just
Yeah,
a bad
crazy
touch. Does he need to step out? And when Dyer's back, do you think it's definitely Sanchez that drops out of the side? Is there any possibility that maybe Davies might be a guy that comes out? Could Conte think, well, I'll maybe have Romero, Dyer and Sanchez in there because Dyer might be able to get hold of Sanchez at all?
I think when Dyer and Sanchez played together, they actually formed a decent and formidable partnership. I think Dyer was like the cooling, calming effect on Sanchez. And we know Sanchez on his day can be brilliant, but he just, like you said, like he's a bit brain dead. Like against, no pressure, he gets the ball on the edge of his box, heavy touch, and all of a sudden the Wolves players jump on him, and then he's scrambling, And then it's just, and I think
But
as
that
well.
should really have been 3-0 at that point, shouldn't
Yeah,
it? I
yeah.
mean,
So
that
we
led to
got
a
very
chance it should have
lucky.
been 3-0, yeah.
We got very lucky there. So and teams now know, let Sanchez have the ball because he's more than likely going to make a mistake, and then we can press him, harass him because he's just wild and reckless. And yeah, I think he's got to get dropped when Dyer hopefully is back. I think Dyer's resumed full training, so I'm not sure if they start against Man City. I'm hoping he will. Sanchez needs to come out of the firing line for a bit, just cool down. For me, I'm so surprised Rodon has never got a good run out because every time I've seen him play, I think I've seen a player there. I think he's actually a good player. I know some players have said he's championship and not players, fans have said he's championship material and this and that. But I've not seen that. I've seen a good young centre back, rapid, reads the game well, obviously is decent on the ball. And I think if he was actually given time, there could have been a player there. So I'm not sure what's happened. I've read some reports that he's been playing with a lot of injuries this season, a
Yeah, it
broken
does.
rib or
There has
something
been
like
them
that.
reports, yeah, all
Yeah,
these
so
little niggles, yeah.
yeah, so I'm not sure maybe if that's what's happened, but I'm surprised he hasn't got more of a run out considering how bad some of our centre backs have been.
So let's look at top four then, guys. Obviously, the performance was what it was, and those two at home have kind of, as we say, really should have been the 6 points on the board, and the games in hand should really have kind of come into play at that point. But where do we think we stand now on the top four challenge? Because we've still obviously got 3 games in hand on West Ham, and obviously if you were to win those 3, you're above them. But obviously we start with Man City this weekend. And let's face it, you guys might feel the same. You don't really have much optimism going into that game, given the way we're defending and the way City are playing. After that, it's then, away trips to Burnley and Leeds. And now those are 2 grounds and 2 teams that are not foregone conclusions. So where do we stand with the top 4? Do you think those 2 games at home have really put a dent in that push for top 4? Ryan, where do you stand? I mean, obviously it's still on, but do you think those 2 home performances might have just kind of crushed that confidence that you might need and that new manager bounce that suddenly puts an element of doubt into a top 4 push?
I know it might sound strange, excuse me, but I don't think it does because I know we've got City at the weekend, and you look at it tonight, they're going in at 4-0 up away at Sporting Lisbon in the Champions League. So it is not, that's the type of game we've got coming for us at the weekend. But at the same time, the teams around us, your West Hams, your Arsenals, your Man U's, it's not just us dropping points at the minute. All 4 of us, and I would say add Wolves in there maybe because I said they're above us now. They're still there within touching distance, but none of them teams at the minute look like they're going to run away with that 4th spot. They're mistaking every single team there. So these 2 games we've lost could really define this season because it could be a changing point in Conte's style. It could force him to change his formation, his style that brings something different to the team. And like I say, it's a game like Man City at the weekend, as daft as it may sound, this is probably the best time for him to maybe experiment different personnel or a different formation because nobody expects us to go to Man City and win, which is, like I say, it's sad to say that because we got this stadium to go to a Manchester City and challenge them for honours and at their stadium. You don't want to go to Manchester City and lose before the game's even started, but that's the way it is at the minute. But maybe this is a game where Conte, like I say, he brings Rodon in and tries it because when he first spoke of Rodon, he always said that Rodon is there behind Dyer. So when Dyer is unavailable, that's where Rodon comes in the middle of the 3-man defence. Obviously, he's moved Romero in, which I don't mind. I love Romero. I think he's a quality acquisition for Tottenham. I think he's only going to get better in this league because, like Patrick said about Emerson, Romero's still learning the game. Yeah,
and we've had a favour, haven't we, recently with the bans that those guys have got for Argentina because we all know that Romero will normally go away, pick up an injury on international duty, so that kind of plays in our favour a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's massive. Like I said, the last international break that they all went on to actually keep him there, get his fitness back up, have him back for these games is huge because he is our best defender. But like I say, he's still somebody that is trying to understand the language and the culture and the actual football in the Premier League. It's completely different to the Italian league. It's a lot quicker. It's a lot tougher. So he's still trying to understand everything. But to have him back is huge. But it's one of them. If we go to Man City and we lose, then you can just push that game aside because unfortunately we all expect it. But then the games after it, your Leeds, your Burnleys, even the game against Man United, I think it's the 12th of March. That's a game you've got to. That's the biggest game we've got out of all of them coming up, because that's the closest to us. We have. If you go into that game and put in a bad performance or you don't show up, I think that's something that us as fans and fans in the stadium that's hard to get away from, because that's a team challenging top four with you. You've got to put in a performance in that game. And I mean, we've spoken about Sanchez a bit, but with Eric Dyer out, most occasions, other teams, you have players coming in thinking, right, this is my this is my time to shine now. This position's up for grabs. He's out for a few weeks, month, whatever it is. I can make this position my own now. I can win the fans over. I can win the manager over. But I don't think it feels like we haven't got many players in our squad that feel like that. Some of them seem happy to come in and out. Rotation we need more. As bad as Højbjerg has been over the past few performances, if he's on the pitch, he will fight for the club. He will fight for the team. We just don't seem to have many players like that anymore. I mean, Wanyama, he was nowhere near as good as Dembele on the ball, but he would put in just as much effort as Dembele on the pitch. That's why we loved that combination of Dembele and Wanyama, because both of them fought for the club. Both of them would work as hard as each other. And when Wanyama got the ball, it was a simple, I don't mind Wanyama playing a side pass because you're giving it to Moussa Dembele and he will make something happen for the side. We just ain't got players like that. We ain't got that Wanyama, Dembele, Eriksen trio in midfield now. That's exactly what this team's missing. A fighter like Wanyama, a baller like Dembele, and a creative midfielder like Eriksen. We've never replaced those three. Never mind Walker or Vertonghen out of our old Rose, players like that. There's so much we've still got to replace from the Poch era. It's actually frightening.
Patrick, what about yourself, Patrick, thinking about these next few games coming up as well? Where do you stand on the top four race at the moment? I think, as Ryan made a good point, none of the teams in and around there at the moment, not one team yet looks like it's going to grab the mantle and say, right, this top four's ours. We're going to go on a run. As Ryan said, possibly you could sit here and say that that's just right off the City game, because the way things are going at the moment, that could become one of those horror show, Etihad performances. Mm-hmm. It would be Spursy that we go there and get a result because we've done quite well there recently. But I'm prepared to say, okay, the City game you could write off, a bit like relegation teams. You pick out 4 or 5 fixtures that you go, right, well, we were not going to get anything out of those. Yeah. But as Ryan said, it's the games after that, isn't it? Burnley away, Leeds away, Man United. Those, I think, are the 3 games that could define where this top 4 race goes, couldn't it? Because if we don't pick up the points we should do there, I think that's a massive blow in that top 4 race.
Definitely. I mean, Man City is almost a free hit. If we get something out of that, fantastic. But realistically, every single person around the footballing world isn't expecting Tottenham to get anything at the Etihad. Man City, for me right now, the best team in the world. Like Ryan said, they're 4-0 up in their Champions League game away to Sporting. And Sporting are no slouches. Of course, they're not as good as Man City, but they're a good team. So, Man City are just in cruise control. They're just so good. And we hate to say it, but they're going to walk the league again. They're brilliant. So, we can't, if we get something out of it, because oddly enough, they probably hate playing us because we always somehow get something out of the game. So
I say it's been a ground we've managed to go to and cause some upsets recently, isn't it?
And they still haven't won at our ground, which is criminal in itself for them because everyone else has beat us at the stadium. So that in itself is mental. So you just never know. Fingers crossed, touch wood, we get something out of that. But that's a free hit for pretty much the whole footballing community. But away to Burnley, away to Leeds, then we got away to Middlesbrough in the cup. Then we've got Everton at home, and then we're away to Man United. That Man United game is massive. That is a top 4, 6-pointer, because whoever drops points, you ideally want to get your 3 points off Man United and stop them getting points, because they're definitely in the hunt with us for that top 4. Like Ryan said as well, I just take comfort, even though Sunday was so bad. I just took comfort in the fact that even though my Arsenal fans have been all over me and bantering me and acting like they've already secured top 4, they're just as bad as us. The only reason why they feel better is because they didn't play. If they would have played, they probably would be going through the same thing. Man United had dropped points in both games they played. They're playing right now. Touchwood, I don't want to jinx it, but it was 0-0 the last time I checked. We're all just as bad as each other, unfortunately. It's crazy. You've got the top 2, then you've got Chelsea, and then the drop-off in quality is abysmal. For a league as good as the Premier League, which we all love, and we say it's the best league in the world, I'm sorry, but Tottenham's, your Arsenals, your West Hams. West Ham, I could kind of take them out because they've improved to get where they are. But your Arsenals, your Man Uniteds and Tottenham's, we should be ashamed of ourselves. We're all teams that should be fighting for Champions League, performing at the highest level. And we're all a bit of a joke, if we're being honest. So I just take comfort in that we're all just as bad as each other. One of us needs to go on a run. If we go on a run, we'll secure it. Man United on paper have the quality to do that, but they just don't seem like a cohesive unit. We've obviously got Conte. Arsenal have got the young gunners in terms of the young stars. So it's just anyone's guess. And obviously you can't write off West Ham because they seem to always get a result at the moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I said on Twitter the other day that we were out of it after we lost. Maybe I was being a bit emotional. Maybe I was overwhelmed the fact that we dropped points in 2 games in a row. Obviously, we're not out of it yet because mathematically we're still banging the mix and we played a lot less games than some of the other teams. But of those 2 performances, I wouldn't give myself much, confidence to say that we're in it. I just need to see some better performances, to be honest, then I can really assess it.
Well, I think what Ryan said there was one of the important ones. It's something that's kind of cost us in seasons past, isn't it? I think about the Chelsea game at the Tottenham Stadium under Jose, where that United game is where you want to see a performance, because we are criminal at just not turning up in those big games, are we? And laying down a marker, and those performances are the ones that then ultimately start to undo the season. So I like, as you say, if one team can get on a run, and if we can just get on the run, like under when Conte first come in, if you can go 4, 5, 6 games unbeaten at least, picking up points, then that top 4 race is still on. It's going to be tough. Arsenal won't be able to, if Arsenal could help themselves keeping, 11 men on the pitch to begin with, they rarely struggle to do that. So I'm a bit like you. Arsenal, I don't fear Arsenal in that race for top 4 because I just think they're just equally, they can easily go on a run of losing some silly games. So United are the team that I really think, United and West Ham are the 2 teams that I think are going to be your real competition. And we've just got to make sure that those trips to Burnley and Leeds, we turn up, put the performances in, get the job done. So we're going to go to a little section here now, just before we finish off. We'll have a little bit of a new fun section called Tweets of the Week. And what I do is I look through Twitter as it goes. And this week's been a really good week to be looking through Twitter.
Just go to Patrick's feed, Carl.
I normally do. But I'm going to throw you some tweets that we can discuss just to see, what we feel. And we thought, we'd get a little bit of listener involvement here. So I'm going to start with a tweet from that Tottenham feed and get you guys' opinion. So he says, one of the hardest things for Conte at Tottenham will be the mentality. We never seem to capitalise or take opportunity to get ahead in the table when it arises. These games in hand will be a tough test for sure, and another indicator of where we are in a group. So guys, Ryan, what do we think about that? Do we think that is one of Conte's real challenges with this group?
Oh, massive. I think it's been a challenge for every manager that's come in. Just the mentality of the players is they just seem to they've fallen at so many hurdles. I think they just go into games at a minute fearing the worst. Like you say, the Champions League final, the Carabao Cups, the Premier League title race that we had. We've just got to hope that one day one manager can actually come in and just pick the play, just pick confidence up before a big game. Like I say, going into we say Man U is a big game. Of course, it's massive, but right now the Burnley and Leeds games are huge, especially after the last two results that we've had. So hopefully Conte can pick the players up, reassure them that, like I say, the likes of Kane, the likes of Son, the world-class players. You've got those two in your team, use them. And like I say, you if we beat Burnley and Leeds, the confidence gets up. But then, like I say, you go into the Man U game, and it's as if they get there and they think, "Oh, this is a big game." Like, we can't. I think they worry too much about letting the fan base down, letting themselves down, letting everyone down. That they're too fearful going into these big games. We just need to hope that Conte can somehow, in something different that no other manager's been able to do yet, is send these players into these games with as much confidence as possible to actually go pick the wins up that this club needs.
Patrick, what about you? Do you think that's a challenge that Conte's up to? It kind of, I know it's sometimes you think it's a Spurs DNA, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Ryan's hit the nail on the head, like bang on. I mean, we're playing fantastic. We've got a nice little run. And as soon as the pressure's on us and we're expected to deliver, or people will start talking, Tottenham are in the mix for, Champions League. Tottenham are in the mix to possibly win the league. That's when we just capitulate. Or, Tottenham are in the Champions League final. Of course, playing Liverpool, we were always the underdogs, but we just didn't turn up. A Carabao Cup last year didn't turn up. Like, there's teams that aren't as good as Tottenham that have won trophies. So it's no excuse. We just don't turn up when it counts. And God forbid we'll go and beat Leeds and Burnley, and then we'll play Man United and we just collapse, or we give them a penalty, or we'll just do something stupid and throw the game away. It always seems to be the way. So I just want to see us go on a good run now. All these games are tough. Burnley are fighting for their lives. Leeds as well are not where they want to be, and they're almost fighting for their lives. They're sucked in with Everton, so they're going to be tough games. It's not like we're playing a team that almost has nothing to play for. These two teams are fighting for 3 points, just like us. So it will be tough. But to be fair, again, we should be beating these teams without any excuses. And then the Man United game, again, they're not great. Yes, they're a good team on paper. They're a big team. They've got good players. But if we're being honest, we've watched Man United many a time and think, wow, this football's crap. Wow, these guys aren't playing for each other. Wow, they're not putting a shift in. So those are 3 games that we should be winning. If we're serious about finishing in the top 4, we've got to get some points now. We've dropped 2 clangers. It does happen. Like Ryan said, maybe this is a shake-up that we need. It's now time to stop all the excuses. I don't want to see no more tweets from Harry Kane saying, "Oh, bad day at the office, we'll go again, we'll roll our sleeves up." I don't want to see none of that mumbo jumbo. Just show it to us on the pitch. We believe
would that be part of the mentality shift, you think?
Yeah,
you'd see, Patrick, that would make you go, right, yeah.
Yes, stop it. Stop telling me every time, "Oh, we're sorry we let you down. We'll come again next week." Because the next week comes and you don't do it. It's the same old crap. Just put in a shift. Finish your dinner, finish your chances, put that extra yard in, and just show it, because you guys can do it. They're good enough to get these results. Now it's time to deliver. I'm tired of this same mumbo jumbo after we lose a game. As fans, we don't want to see it. We just want to we don't want to hear it. We just want to see them putting in a shift and leaving it all on the pitch. And if we get beat, so be it. But when we're getting beaten 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and we can just see that the guys didn't turn up, that's what is demoralizing for me.
Yeah, perfectly said there, I think. Okay, so another tweet that was there over the week, and this is quite an interesting one, given that, Bentancur, who is obviously future Ballon d'Or winner after the appearances, and Kulu, who we're kind of still waiting to see where we land. But at JRT Spurs says, "I judge players after 2 games. How long do you give players before judging them, just out of interest?" So Ryan, how long do you normally give a new signing before you've kind of made your mind up of where you think things are going?
Well, it's different. Like we've spoken about tonight with someone like Emerson, and say if we sign someone like Lingard, I'll judge someone like Lingard a lot quicker than I would Emerson, because Lingard's been here in this league. He's played his entire career in this league. So the likes of Emerson, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Romero, you'll call out bad performances, but you'll understand that they still need time to understand. Because like I say, they're coming from completely different leagues, different styles of play from different teams. You understand that. But if we was to sign someone from the Premier League, then I'll judge them a lot quicker. Not after 2 games. I won't go as far as the 3 before the 2 games. I won't go 2 games in, but I would probably judge quicker from a local player who's played in this league for several years than I would somebody coming from a foreign league.
Patrick, what about yourself? Because obviously, I think this sparked, didn't it? When, obviously Bentancur comes on and gives a little cameo and, does a little pirouette on the ball and everyone's like,
exactly.
Kulu comes on as sub, kind of doesn't have that same impact, doesn't get a chance. And people are already quick to kind of go, oh, it doesn't look like we've got a player on our hands here.
It's crazy. I mean, we need to just relax because every player is different. We saw Gareth Bale again. He came in. And he was almost, remember when Gareth Bale first came in, when he wore number 3?
He was going to Forest or Birmingham, wasn't he, at some point? Yeah.
When his name was read out on the team sheet, he was considered a jinx. We used to boo. We used to like, oh, fuck, Gareth Bale's in the team. We're going to lose today. Imagine that. One of the best players you've ever seen in the Premier League. And it took him like 2 years to find his feet. So every player is different. When Moussa Dembele first came, he was almost played as a number 10. It wasn't really working out for him. And again, there was jitters and murmurs that we kind of, Fulham, saw us come in and pulled our pants down. But again, it took him time to find his feet. He was dropped further back, and we all fell in love with the player that he became. So it's so hard to say. Bentancur has looked really good, but it's only 2 games. Kulusevski has looked okay. I think some people are being way too reactionary. I've not seen him have a bad game. He just obviously hasn't done what Bentancur has done in terms of being like easy on the eye. But Kulusevski was robbed of an assist because Bergwijn should have scored that, and it's a totally different story. So it's fine. It's fine lines. It's hard to say because some players will take a year to adjust. Some players will settle in straight away. But 2 games is way too reactionary or too soon for me. Going back to the tweet. So,
especially if as well, like I say, it never helps if you're playing in a side that are having a shocker performance on the pitch. Like take that Wolves game. The guy gets thrown on after 28 minutes as if he's the guy that's going to come on and change the game massively for you, and he can't have that impact. So, like I say, I think JT there, I wouldn't want to have to be a player in his side if he was a manager. He'd be changing his squad every transfer window. So next one that we'll talk about, given the way he started, and this one is from @TommyK1226. And he said, Brian Gill is literally ripping it up for Valencia, looks a level above the rest. So, Ryan, what do we think about Gill? Do you think that was a good loan out? And are you still positive that this guy could come back and, have some real impact with this squad?
He needed a loan. I just think he's gone to the wrong country entirely to have his loan. I think he needed to stay in the Premier League. He's got good dribbling attributes. He looks like he could beat his man, but like I say, this type of league he's just a player that you look at and you think you just need to bulk up a little bit. Obviously, we're not asking you to go Adama Traore levels. We're just asking you to pick up a little bit. And obviously, this league, it will be knocked from pillar to post in this league for the type of player that he is. Not due to his size, but the type of player he is. He likes time on the ball. He likes to look for the pass. He likes to beat a man. But to loan him back to La Liga made no sense to me because, like you say, we're sending him back again to a completely different league, a completely different pace. He's gone back to the sunshine rather than staying in England and enjoying our wet summers. We don't need to send him back to La Liga. There surely would have been a Premier League side that would have taken him on loan, whether that be relegation at Norwich or even someone like a Brentford, or even if Leeds could have asked for him as Rafinha backup or anything like that. We should have really
He could even have benefited, couldn't he, from like a skip type loan, even in the Championship.
Yeah.
One of those sides that were potentially going to, on the verge of coming up. But listen, can you help us develop this guy? In the Championship, you get lumps kicked out of you each week, and there's no better way to kind of learn your trade, is there?
No, exactly. Even like say, a Fulham who were chasing back promotion. He's still in London. He's still there. He still knows exactly what's going on. He's still there for the club to see. But to send him, I don't think we'll see much difference when he comes back again, because like I say, he's gone to a league that he's already proven he's comfortable in. We haven't really given him a test to see what Brian Hill we can expect in the future. So, like I say, all the best to him for the rest of the season. Hopefully he plays plenty of minutes, gets some goals and assists, but I'd rather have seen him stayed in England.
Patrick, what's your thoughts on Gil? I mean, it's great that he's kind of, I'm sure for him it's a massive confidence boost, and that to go and start being looked at as, I've already seen some of the, players of Valencia are linking him to some of their great players from the past. But do you think ultimately was that a great loan move for him?
Yes and no. Yes, because he's getting minutes, and he wasn't getting the minutes here. So it's always going to be a positive when a player gets consistent minutes, is trusted. And I think every player thrives of confidence. When you're one of the first choices, it gives you a level above. You're going to play, even if you make a mistake. You're still
the flag's at it.
Yeah, that's it. It's had enough. You're still going to get that trust. Certain players, they're nervous to do something, because if it doesn't come off, you're not going to probably see the pitch again for another 2 weeks or so. So the fact that he's playing is brilliant. But I do believe what Ryan's saying is true. He should have been in the Premier League, and if not, maybe a top-level Championship side, because he needs to adjust to the English mentality, the English play, the English. It's different. We know he can do it in Spain. We've seen that. When we know what he's capable of there. Hence why we bought him. But he needs to do it in England, because next year we want him to come in. He's a creative player that will make a massive difference. Him, and then obviously Pape Matar, who again we bought and loaned back. Again, that's a nice bit of business for us. Next year, we got 2 young, creative players coming in. But, you want to see them at least plying their trade in the Premier League, so they kind of get accustomed to the speed, the tempo, and the physicality of this league. So, yeah, we're always going to miss players when we're not doing well. But he had to go on loan anyway. He wasn't playing. For whatever reason, Conte doesn't trust him right now. He needs a year out, and I'm glad these players are, because we moaned about it with the whole Winks when he was younger, and obviously Foyth and the other guys not getting loan moves, which would have helped their development. We are now doing that, so sometimes we got to go through these teething pains to obviously get the success and the rewards later on. Spurs fans need to also remember we are going through a massive rebuild. This is like this third manager in the space of 3 or 4 years. The team has definitely shifted if you look at what we had 2 or 3 years ago as opposed to now. So there is a lot of stuff going on. But also at the same time, we also are trying to still get back in the Champions League. So it's very difficult. But yeah, him going on loan is brilliant. I would have just preferred it to be in the Premier League. A Crystal Palace, a Brentford, even I wouldn't say a Norwich, because you wanted to be in a team that was actually going to get on the ball and he's going to actually have time to play and think. Norwich probably not, because they just get battered in every game. But yeah, your Crystal Palaces, your Brentfords, they would have been perfect, still in London, and they still try and have some sort of football and identity. Those 2 teams I feel would have been great for him.
Perfect. So before we wrap up, though, also just wanted to shout out to, it was really great to see this week, wasn't it, that Christian Eriksen back on a football pitch playing.
Chris Armstrong.
I don't think he was pleased. Yeah, he wasn't pleased with his last performance in the outing. But Christian Eriksen, it was great, wasn't it, to see him back playing football. Obviously we've got that kind of sentiment with that guy because of, his career with us, and obviously it was shocking what he went through, but it was great just to see him back on a football pitch, and hopefully we'll get to see him in the Premiership and he can get back to some form of, close to that player he was when he was with us just before he left. So just want to give a big shout out to him and wish him all the best. But that's it. That's time up, guys. I think we've reached the point where we're going to say goodbye. Obviously, Ryan, thanks for coming on tonight, mate. And hopefully you'll be back with us next Monday when we look over the Man City fixture.
Yes. Well, yes, I don't know what time. Yes, I will be here. It's always great to be on. Like you say, massive shout out to Dan, who brought me on to the original podcast and kept me on as when he messaged me about it, he asked if I wanted a squad promotion to the first team. I was happy to accept that. But yeah, looking forward to every Monday on the YouTube show with yourself, Carl, hosting, and Patrick. It'll be fun.
Nice one, mate. And Patrick, brilliant tonight as always, mate. And hopefully you'll be back Monday. And I'm sure, as you said earlier, it's a free hit. What can go wrong? We'll be talking about a win, won't we?
Yeah, no, I didn't say what can go wrong. I said it's a free hit. We all know what can go wrong. There's a million different, if I'm like Doctor Strange and I'm playing it out, there's like a million different scenarios. And trust me, there's only one or two good ones. So I've got to try and look for those ones.
I think that's perfectly summed up. There's only one good one in that.
I know.
Will it be today?
The Avengers, yeah. So, man, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it regardless of the result. It's going to be fun chopping up with you guys. I just hope we can turn a corner now, man. We've had a few stinkers, 3 in a row, to be fair. The Brighton game kind of made me forget that we lost twice to Chelsea, in the quick succession. Well, 3 times actually, twice in the in the cup, 1 in the league. So we've had a bit of bad form after we were playing really good. So now it's time to turn it around. The players need to take a look at themselves and step it up. So let's go, man. Let's go. That's all
we'll see you. We'll see you both Monday, and hopefully we'll see everyone as well on Monday. Your audio for those that don't watch on YouTube, and that will be out tomorrow. We'll get that out for you. And obviously, if you can, like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And we'll see you all again on Monday night after Man City as we look to dissect what goes on there. And hopefully we'll be talking about at least a better performance, even if it's not a win. So we'll catch you all again soon, guys. And as always, come on, you Spurs.